You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends.
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And Aiken Mike in Texas.
And welcome to the show, guys. We are excited because guess what happens in just a couple of days?
We're going to be at your house.
That's right. You'll be at my place.
Right.
Actually, tomorrow, actually. So the Arizona Electric Festival happens in a couple of days, and you guys will be here tomorrow, so that's good news. But for this particular episode, we are excited to have Eric with 3D Aeroventures joining us. And he's with us via El Paso, Texas. And Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Not a problem. Now, Jay, you ran into Eric how?
I was doing my normal routine. I was looking for a cure for cancer, and I was doing some research on YouTube. I was watching a cat throwing contest, and the next thing that came up was, believe it or not, was one of Eric's videos that he had on. And he is into 3D printing. And the thing that really caught me when I watched the video were basically two things. A was the lines of the plane that he had designed. And the second thing was his maiden of the plane. I was enthralled with the whole process that he went through. And it just really caught my eye. And I said to myself, I got to have this guy on the show. So,
there you go. And now here he is.
I had to stalk him online, but I found him.
Yeah, there you go. Now that's good. We don't have a problem stalking people. We do it all the time.
Yeah,
so it's kind of funny. Well, Eric, you have some pretty unique airplanes. I have watched some of your videos as well. Jay kind of sent us a link earlier. Tell me about that circular wing looking thing.
Yeah, I call it an infinity wing.
Okay.
And I think I'm not the first person to kind of come up with that design. And I kind of have done some research after the fact. But some call it a box wing or a blended wing design. It almost, like a Beechcraft stagger wing.
Correct.
Kind of has it's a biplane with the top wing is behind the front wing. And so it's kind of like that. But, I started out just wanting to design a flying wing, something simple. And ended up kind of making it a little more complex by doing this blended wing design.
Yeah, that is not quite as simple as you would think.
Exactly.
Yeah, this wing looks way more complex than just printing it out, just making something. Because it actually, Infinity Wing is a good wing. It goes all the way around, right? It's a constant.
Yeah.
There's no break in it.
I was just sad that I wasn't going to be able to print it on my Mini Delta.
Well, that's because your printer's too small.
Yeah, it's way too small.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a wing design that's always kind of appealed to me. It just, from an aerodynamic standpoint, always seemed like it would be super stable. And I've never seen one fly, but I just, after flying it now, it flies like a much larger scale airplane. So it ended up being a really cool design.
Now, are you a aeronautical engineer or something that kind of brought you to this point?
So I've been into flight aviation since I was a little kid. I started in RC modeling at the age of 12. I asked my dad for my 12th birthday if I could get my first RC airplane. And he was always super supportive of our hobbies as kids, me and my brothers. And so he dove just headfirst into this hobby with me. And then once I got to college, I did dabble in aerospace engineering. I ended up getting a manufacturing engineering degree. So my day job is, as an engineer. And so that's kind of where the CAD skills and 3D printing stuff has come from. But just this last, year or two, I've been diving back into my passion for aviation and getting into designing my own planes and stuff.
So one of the things that I heard on the video, or I thought I heard on the video, is that you have your own son that you also did some of this with. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I wanted to hear, and maybe you don't want to share, it's okay if you don't, but I wanted to hear more about that. That part of it.
The relationship between how you were getting him involved. That was kind of neat. I saw on the video as well.
Yeah. And if you guys have kids, you don't want to push your kids into something with the fear of kind of burning them out or,
right.
And so I just want to try to introduce him into the stuff that I'm into. And if he takes it, he takes it. But it was a big part of my childhood. It was, as a part of the relationship with my dad was RC models was huge for us. And we would go literally every Saturday morning from 7 to noon. We'd go to the field and fly. And he'd build them and I'd fly them. And so I at least wanted to kind of do something really simple that would keep my kid's attention. He was only 6 at the time when I did that video. And something I could, something really simple we could design together, just buying kind of a foam glider and designing a little pod on the computer, like a little power pod that we could attach to the top of the foam glider, the little electric motor on it, and turn it into an RC model. So he had more of a blast actually making the video and being on camera than doing the flying part.
As typical kids.
Yeah. But he was kind of a natural on video, and he's a kind of a natural builder as well. He loves Legos and stuff like that. So I'll keep introducing him to stuff, and if it takes, it takes, and if not, then he'll find his own interests. But like I said, it was a big part of my childhood. So as long as he knows I'm there to support his hobbies like my dad was with me, then that's all I really care about.
Well, that's spectacular. Yeah, all of us have adult children, so we're kind of empty nesters. I think that particular video inspired Jay, though, because a couple of days ago, these Chuck gliders showed up at my house, and I'm sure that's from that video, because he's probably going to want to modify them and make them some sort of a powered glider.
What?
Yeah.
Man.
Just because I know him.
It's fun, man. I mean, those gliders, you go to Hobby Lobby or whatever, Walmart, and you buy one of those for $5 or $10. And
right.
I don't know. I've done a lot with those. You can make a clipped wing version and the Aerobat out of it, or just keep it as a glider and just slap a motor on it.
Sure.
So since it's a Chuck glider, does that mean a woodchuck could fly it?
That's a woodchuck. Yeah. Stop chucking some wood. Now, how do you come up with the idea? Like on this particular glider video that I watched, you made this little pod that stood up above it, and then how did that come into your psyche? I mean, when you look at it and go, "Oh, I want to build a pod," as opposed to just chopping off the nose and putting something on the nose?
The reason I did a pod just because of where the center of gravity lies on those gliders is kind of way back in where the wing is pretty far back on those, and so I didn't want to have to slap a motor on the front and then have to compensate with weight in the back, adding more weight to it. So I figured let's keep it around the CG and keep the added weight as low as possible. That's basically where the design came from. So, you have to slap a pod on to get the propeller to clear the top of the fuselage. So I put the pod right on the CG, and then I didn't have to really add any weight in order to balance it.
Now, did you have to put any reflex or anything in the pod itself to make the thrust angle any different, or you just put a pod? Yeah, put a little bit of thrust angle in there, just to make sure it didn't. Actually, you have to put a little bit of up thrust, so that because you're pulling that motor so far above the kind of the center line of the fuselage, if you give it full throttle, it's just going to dive. Right. So you give a little bit of up thrust to compensate for it. That's kind of cool. That was amazing. I was pretty impressed, and I love the video where you were out flying it, so that was kind of neat. Now the video shows you flying it, and somebody else, I guess it's a DJI or Mavic or something that's actually watching you, and then kind of doing it. How do you go about doing that? So I do the video all on my own. Okay. So it's a DJI Mavic Pro. It's all autonomous, which is awesome. So you can just have it basically circle around me, and then I make sure it's far enough away to where it's going to capture flybys and stuff like that. So that's something with future videos I'm getting more into. Like probably my latest one, I had some onboard camera footage, and then I'll eventually get someone out there to help me, capture some better angles and different angles to get better in-flight footage. Well, that's something I'm always going to be experimenting with. Yeah, are you part of a RC club or anything out in El Paso, or? So there's a newer one, or they have a newer field. It's in Las Cruces, which is about 30 minutes outside of El Paso in New Mexico. We know all about Las Cruces, don't we, Jay? Yeah. I think the police looked for us for probably about 3 or 4 days while we were in Las Cruces, because we would show up in the truck and fly, and then when we'd hear the people start coming over to mess with us, we'd jump back in the truck, go to some other place. So
yeah, I might need to hear that story off the air or something.
It was fun. It was fun. But,
yeah. So yeah, there's a really nice field here. In the latest video, you can see the mountains in the background and stuff.
Yeah.
But Mesilla Valley radio controllers, and it's actually the city built the field for them, so it's on city property, but
nice.
It's open. Like, yeah, anybody can go out there and fly. You don't necessarily have to be a member.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really nice field. It has 2 runways, and yeah, it's a pretty nice facility.
Yeah, it looked really nice. It's nice that you can go out
Yeah.
there and kind of fly. And we love Las Cruces. It is a lot of open space out there. So
Yep, real beautiful
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, the weather's great in this part of
Yeah.
the country too. So.
exactly.
Did you give the plane a name, the Infinity Wing plane a name? Like, did you call it something?
Not yet. I'm thinking something like a X100 Infinity. I'll probably keep the Infinity in there somewhere.
That's a good
I kinda
idea.
So we'll call it the Infinity Wing. And I have some other ideas for using that same wing design on like some military concept planes and stuff that I'll probably come out with in the future.
So I noticed you used a 2200 in that plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I can fly that plane. I mean, that's perfect for me.
Mike doesn't fly anything with more than a 2200 in it. So
Okay.
That's his stock battery
he's all
for everything.
excited. You just used a 2200. So he's like,
Yeah,
"Ooh."
I have a couple of smaller batteries, but I didn't want to have a whole inventory of different batteries, so I find 2200 planes and fly those. It's awesome.
Okay, yeah. So you might not like the future stuff I have coming out. They're a little bigger, but yeah, that one's it's a little Power 15, E-Flight Power 15 with a 3S in it, and pulls it along really nice.
That thing, yeah, I was gonna say that thing looked like it was cooking. Like,
Pretty fast.
yeah. Did you have to react fast, or was it just docile enough, even though it was flying that fast?
It's really docile. I mean, it's super smooth, and the weather was really good when I flew it that day. But yeah, I was honestly, because it's a whole new concept. So as you saw in the first one, there was a bit of a mishap, and then after some redesign, and I was a little surprised how well it flew. But you know, my gut told me that wing design would do really well. But yeah, just to have it come to fruition is pretty rewarding.
So, as a person who's doing 3D printing himself, unfortunately our listeners can't see in the back of you. There's a small 3D farm, I would say.
Yeah.
Where you have
It
four
looks like a
Pruses
farm.
back there. Beautiful. So,
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that for you, for printing anything, gets done a little bit quicker than, say, like me with my one little machine chugging out parts. This particular model, how long do you think it would take me?
So I think that particular model, a total, like if you were to print each part individually, is like 100 hours, but you can group parts. So
Right.
you think if you're running your printer 24 hours a day, you could knock it out in 4 or 5 days.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad.
So it's not terrible.
Sounds like a
but,
challenge.
it's nice. Those are just a handful of the printers that are in my house. So the one that are behind me, but
You mean there's more?
yeah,
Oh man.
that one I was able to knock out in that plane I was able to knock out in a day or two, and I got a lot of practice. I had to rebuild it a couple times. So.
Yeah, this is your office, and so in the man cave, there's a few more in there as well, and then there's probably one on the kitchen table, right? And there's one in your son's room, I imagine. So,
Yeah. You guys, there's another. There's your resin printers.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
there's a bunch of
oh my.
pretty cool.
Well, we know who to call for 3D stuff now.
That's
Yeah,
right.
anytime.
I already got them on speed dial. Are you kidding?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What is the make of the 3D printers that you made it with?
Yeah, so the type of technology is called FDM, and it's basically your kind of general hobbyist printer that prints out of a plastic filament. But the brand is a Prusa MK3, and it's become one of the most popular. It's a little high end on the kind of hobby spectrum. They're about $1,000 a piece, but they're plug and play. So you pull it out of the box,
and that is the key, because like I said, for the $7,000 or $1,000 that you're paying into it, at least, like you said, if you have any problems with it, you can call those guys up. They'll help you out. When you get the machine, it's already been calibrated, it's been run. There's very little that you have to do with it, as opposed to my machine, which I shake it out of a box, screw it together, and then it's in some weird Chinglish, let your happy thoughts soar as you make prints with plastic 3D,
Yeah.
and, they don't even tell you how to turn it on. So to the YouTubes,
Yeah.
and, watch a couple of videos, and I was able to get mine
Jay
dialed
spent
in.
many years overseas, so
Yeah.
Yeah, they all market it the same way as like, hey, just plug it in and you can print your own parts, and really give you a lot of insight into the learning curve. But that's marketing, I guess. But yeah, these have been, I don't know, they print really pretty high quality parts, and you end up putting a little more money into it than you initially think. Just buying the printer, I've got some more money in like materials, and then I have them because I do a lot of long prints, so I have them all on battery backup. So if the power goes out, they'll keep running. So
yeah, it looks like a little 3D store in the background there. So
yeah,
all I see behind you is a turbine. That's what I see.
Exactly. Yeah.
Turbine airplane.
It's doable.
Yeah.
We can do an A380 or something.
There you go. Actually, it'd be kind of interesting, Jay, because
what's that?
We watched that 787 video where the guy cut all those formers and made that whole 787 10 times.
That fiberglass? That Israeli guy?
No, he did. It was made out of wood, I think, balsa wood.
Okay.
But anyway, he cut all these formers. It was really big, and matter of fact, he had to haul it around in a trailer. But it would be interesting to see, what it would look like in a 3D print. I'm sure it would probably be heavy, though, right? All that plastic weighs a lot.
Yeah, that's the tough part with 3D printing is trying to balance the strength and weight.
So what type of filament do you like to use for this?
That's a heavy question because there's tons of different filaments out there.
Sure.
And they all have different strengths and weaknesses. So the easiest to use, like you probably know, is PLA.
Right.
Polylactic acid, which is it's actually derived from cornstarch. It's a super earth-friendly material. It's super easy to print because it doesn't warp very much as it prints. So imagine, you're putting these really thin layers down. The first couple layers, if they don't stick to the bed really well, they can warp, and you'll get not a flat surface on that bottom surface. So using a printer-friendly material like PLA is great for parts where you need to have really tight seams like airplanes. So that tends to be the material of choice for 3D printable aircraft, just because you're going to get what you put into the printer, you're going to get it. Like it's going to be nice and flat, and when you come to glue joints and stuff, you're not going to have to do anything weird in order to fill the joints. But it's also a kind of a heavy plastic, so every plastic has a different density. Right. And so PLA is on the heavier side. So there's been a lot of research actually on the material side, not necessarily for RC aircraft, but there's other applications where they're wanting to have light and strong parts. So they're starting to come out with these other materials, and there's an interesting one out there that's a PLA base, but it kind of has a foaming technology in it. So it prints at like 30 or 40% the density of your typical plastic. So it comes out 30 or 40% the weight of your typical part. So that's intriguing. Cutting 70 or 60% of weight off a plane just by switching material is intriguing.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, actually.
The other thing PLA is really friendly to print, but it's not super temperature resistant and stuff like that. So there's a lot of materials that people are playing with. ABS is one, but it warps. It has higher temperature resistant, but it warps quite a bit versus PLA. So there's kind of a give and take no matter what material you choose.
Well, plus if the PLA is made out of cornstarch, if I got lost in the desert, I could eat it, right?
Yeah, you just leave it there and it'll degrade.
Oh no, I was thinking if I got lost in the desert, I could have a PLA sandwich. Yeah, because it's just made out of cornstarch.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm kind of bound up. I ate this plastic.
Well, but it is something really to think about in the sense of, since we all of us live here in Texas and in Arizona, that's that's a big deal. I mean, how temperature resistant is the plastic, not just for airplanes, but just for any 3D print. And then you take it outside or you put it in your car and walk away for 5 minutes. Once again, we came down, AK Mike and myself came down from Alaska. We used to throw our planes in our car and drive around with them have them in there all the time. So whenever we had 5 minutes somewhere, we'd jump out, fly them, and do whatever. And I found that here in Texas, not so much. You don't leave things in your car because they get melted.
Jay wanted me to make an airplane one time out of hot glue, and it lasted about 30 seconds in the summer here in Phoenix. It took off. It flew about 100 yards. I turned it around, and the things just started falling apart. I don't even think it made it all the way back to me. It was just melted like a big gooey mess. So I learned well.
Yeah, definitely something to think about, like your material choices.
So what about glue? What do you have a certain type of glue that you like to use for these prints, or a glue that works in a certain position for strength in the parts, or that's something that I was kind of wondering about.
Yeah, it's just standard CA super glue, just like you would with a wood model. It sticks. Actually, the glue joints end up being stronger than kind of the interlayer bond between the layers of the print.
Oh, okay.
So,
is that because it melts the plastic?
Yeah, a little bit. It's got a little bit of a what do you call it?
Well, the CA when it kicks off, it's got heat to it, so I just didn't know if it melted it too. So it's kind of fuses the two.
It probably
together.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's a kind of an exothermic, heat reaction, so it's melting the plastic a little bit.
Sure.
But PLA glues really well with super glue. So does ABS.
We had a guy. We had a guy at the club just last year, I think, and he showed up and he had a complete 3D printed P-51 Mustang.
Oh, nice.
Everything, but he printed it in like a clear, so it was pretty funny. So the whole thing was clear; you could see through it. But the nose cone and the tail feathers were silver. So it was like he tried to start it, or he finally got the silver and had already completed it. But unfortunately, it never got off the ground. He
oh no!
Yeah, he ran down the runway and kind of went off the runway because the rudder wasn't as quite effective. I don't think he had the throws quite right. And so as it started kind of veering off, it went off the runway, which wouldn't have been a problem, but in Arizona, it's kind of sandpaperish. And so he lifted off, caught a wing, and it cartwheeled. So there wasn't really much we could do because it came apart in a million pieces. But it was very intriguing because he printed all these little sections of the wing, and the wings had ribs, and it was an airfoiled airplane. So, but I wish I would have been able to see it fly.
Okay, so that leads me to a question about your plane, the Infinity plane. When you landed it the first time, I mean, I assumed it kept together, or did it come apart?
Yeah.
Or stay together? I mean, because if you hit that, at the right spot or just a little bit too hard, it's not very forgiving that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, your typical crash, it's going to shatter into pieces. So, I mean, the benefit of 3D printing a plane is you can just replace your own parts really cheap, and the materials are cheap. But the downside is, it's not nearly as impact resistant as like a balsa plane. So it handles standard flight characteristics just fine. Landings are fine. Even like with that Infinity wing, I'm belly landing it, and it's not cracking on me or anything. But once you get kind of out of a normal landing and a little bit of a bonk to it, for lack of a better word, then it'll crack on you.
Sure.
And that brings back, comes back to like your material choices. PLA is a little bit of a brittle material. So that's something I plan on doing, just a whole video series on experimenting with different materials with the same plane to see, you can see like, here's the temperature difference between these. Imagine 4 different materials of the identical plane, but here's, what you can expect from a temperature resistance, impact resistance, printer friendliness, stuff, and weight.
Because I think one of the new ones out is PTG. Is the new one everybody's kind of talking about. But even though it has benefits, just like you just said, it also has some downgrades too. The best part about it is, since you have to print at a higher temperature, that gives you really good bonding between the layers. You don't have to worry about that. But on the flip side, it can be a little finicky, or depending on your printer, you may not be able to get up to the temperature high enough, or your bed temperatures,
Yeah.
So that could be a factor as well. But I'd like to see that myself.
So we had a guy at our Richardson Radio Club that printed one too, and you guys remember what the plane type was? It was a low wing. You remember
Spitfire.
I sent you pictures of it? It's kind of a green one.
It was a Spitfire.
Anyway, what's that?
It was a Spitfire.
A Spitfire, and the guy was talking about it. And he said for him, he was having trouble with his printer because he'd have bad prints and stuff. So there was a bunch of times where he had to reprint sections or whatever. And it was always happening at the end of the print.
Always.
So it would go almost all the way, and then all of a sudden, just kind of crap out.
18 hours and 1 second.
Exactly.
Tick. Oh!
Yep. And but one of the things he was challenged with because of the way this plane flew, and when it landed, it was easy to land it hard, and that would make something fold typically. Just because, like you said, the brittleness of the plastic. It was unfortunate because it was a beautiful looking plane, and it flew really nice, but getting it back on the ground was the challenge.
Yeah, I guess from my experience, as long as you're kind of sticking within kind of normal, flight, and you have decent landings even. I've had some rough landings even like with that air cam design that I did, and it's held up fine. But yeah, once you kind of get a little bit more aggressive with it, or have a wing, or if it flips over, or, have a nose over on a landing or something, you're probably going to break something.
Yeah. So how do you go about picking airplanes to print? Because I'm sure that every airplane is not the easiest, I guess.
Yeah.
When you're looking at it and you kind of go, oh, I'll make this one. That it should be fairly simple, and then it's not that simple, and then something complex is even probably even more off the chart. So how do you go about picking something?
For me, I think the top priority for me is I want it to be an interesting design.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't really mind complexity. Like as an engineer, I kind of embrace problem solving. And so if it's, I don't know, I have a lot of experience in product development to know that even things that look simple have some complexity. So no matter what, I've got some complex solutions to solve, to work through even for a simple aircraft. So first and foremost, I want it to be a really interesting and cool design, something unique that, there's in the RC modeling world, there's all these kind of standard airplanes that everybody's making, it seems like.
Cub, P-51.
So I want to come out. Yeah, there's always a P-51, there's always a Spitfire, which is awesome. There's a reason for it because they fly great and they're iconic designs. But I also want to there's so many aircraft out there that I think will make great RC aircraft. So I could show you my list of 50 aircraft that I kind of have coming in the docket that I'm really interested in. And so, first and foremost, I just want it to be something interesting. And I think as I kind of gain a little bit of a following and have people that are purchasing my designs and stuff, I'll be able to tap into them as well. Like, hey, here's 5 airplanes I'm thinking about. What do you guys want to see?
Sure.
So I'll learn a lot more there too, as far as what people are interested in. So
the name of your company is 3D Aeroventures. How did that come about? And tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah. So my day job is as a product development engineer. I own my own company where I do product development for inventors, small businesses, and startups. So basically anything in the plastics industry. So I do a lot of CAD development on the computer, and then I prototype them through 3D printing typically, and then hand them off to like a full-blown plastic injection manufacturer, something like that, to take their product to market. And so the CAD software that I use is called SolidWorks, and it's probably one of the most widely used 3D design softwares out there. And so I've done some tutorial content for them in the past. They're a big company, and so this past year they approached me about doing a YouTube channel, and they would, instead of them buying content from me and publishing it under their own brand, they wanted me to create my own content around something I'm passionate about. And so I gave them a proposal about, doing a series on developing 3D printed aircraft through using their software, and it's kind of taken off from there. So I started it as a YouTube channel, and as it's garnered a lot of interest, I've decided to kind of start transitioning that into its own kind of business where I could sell the digital files and stuff like that. So if you guys want to check out 3daeroventures.com right now, I've just got a landing page up, but in February, when this podcast comes out, within that month, I'll have the Infinity Wing up for sale with an instruction manual and full 3D printing files, G codes, and stuff like that for people to just run with it.
Very cool.
And then planning on once a month, once every 6 weeks, having a new design coming out every. So if you go to the webpage 3daeroventures.com right now, you can just sign up for the email list, and then I'll send an email blast out once new designs are ready, and I'll keep publishing videos about the design and builds of new aircraft and stuff like that.
So how long does it take you to design the airplane? Because if you're talking about every 2 weeks, you're working at this thing plus your real job.
Yeah, right.
You're a busy guy.
Yeah, I've got my hands in a lot of different things, but I have a lot of energy behind this just because I really enjoy.
Sure.
It's sort of a dream for me, just because I've strived in work to look for something in my work that I enjoy the process versus just enjoying the result.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something where I enjoy the whole process of designing an aircraft, and it's seeing it go from something in my head to on the screen. It's forming itself on the screen, and then once I physically have it just printed out, within a few weeks is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So time-wise, to design it on the computer, every design can be a little bit different, but say that Infinity Wing took about 100 hours of design time. And it looks like a simple design from the outside, but once you start factoring in, there's a really unique ribbing structure in there to make it 3D printable and strong.
Right.
And then all the servo bays and ailerons and everything like that. Print time is 80 to 100 hours as well.
Right. Well, most people, I think a lot of people just think when they get these designs or they see something, they just think, like you said, when you design it, you just draw the outline of the plane, and that's all you have to do. And it's nothing like that, because not only because that plane is a very complex shape, and it kicks butt. It's beautiful, but people don't go. It doesn't come to mind for most folks that you have to now figure out how to take it apart and how to put it together so that it's strong and interlinking, and that if something breaks, you can take it apart and print out another part and put it in its place, and it has to be strong. Just all those little factors in there, and keep it light. You're not making out of a solid piece of plastic. You're trying to go as thin as you can for as less weight as you can. And fitting all those things together, it's just it's remarkable work, I tell you. Now that I just dabbled into it, I just kind of go, whoa. When I saw that wing, I just went, whoa, that took a little bit of work to figure that out. So I'm a little bit in awe.
Getting the exterior shell of a design is the fast part. Just kind of getting the lines designed out is really quick.
Right.
And then it's once you dive into the inside of it and trying to get all the little minutia details done, that's where the design time kind of drags out.
Well, and then, there's a lot to say about, certain points in aircraft in design, because you can design a wing, you can design the fuselage, you put them together and go fly for the first time, the airplane comes apart because the stress points in certain areas are not, strong enough, or, there's a reason we have a wing spar, and in some airplanes it's 20 feet long because you need all of that in order to, for your wing loading. So there is a lot of aerodynamics that go into the design portion. So, kudos to you for being able to figure all that out for something that's in miniature. Now, that design for the Infinity Wing, I know I had an uncle who works for NASA, and it's funny because when we were kids, he would cut out a Coke can, and then he would make it in a shape, and we'd all started laughing at it. But then he would tell us to make paper airplanes, and we would all go out there in the yard and throw it. And he would throw this thing, and it would go like 200 yards, just. And so
like a football.
it's similar to a football. It looks more like a Burger King crown, but it's in it's basically a circle, so it's an infinity.
It's a ring plane. Yeah,
it is. And so
Gotcha.
we made it. He finally showed us how to do it with paper. So almost every time I'm somewhere and someone goes, "Hey, we're going to have a paper airplane contest," I always make this
ring plane. Yeah,
and I'm standing there with this little circle of it looks like a hat, and everybody's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a wing." And they're like, "No, it's a circle." But yet mine flies, in a straight line, and it flies as far. Now the trick is you can't really huck it really hard because it just destroys it. It has to be gliding. But but it's very similar to, your Infinity Wing. It just is a circle instead of a oval like what you have. But it's a very unique design. I was very impressed with it, and to put all that work into it was just amazing. So
cool.
if you haven't seen it, jump on Eric's website and check it out. YouTube. What's your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so it's youtube.com/3D Aeroventures. Or if you go to 3dairventures.com, you'll see at the bottom is a little YouTube icon.
The video that I saw was only the Infinity Wing. So what I really liked about that video was that you showed the thing that failed, which was awesome.
That's what kicked it for me too.
And I thought that, the idea that said, you made some humor about yourself, which about the juke that you made. I remember laughing when I heard you say that. I was like, yeah, that's definitely right. You needed to make a juke to get it out of the way. And just that whole thing. And then of course to see, unfortunately you couldn't see more of the plane, but you just watch it whiz by the camera like, whoa, that thing's falling. So I just want to share that. I mean, you probably got plenty of feedback on that video, but for me, and in terms of my interest of the plane, you increased it because of that.
That's cool.
Just from a standpoint of
I think a lot of video, or a lot of people that do video work or stuff like this, they make it look really polished and
easy.
Like everything went perfectly throughout the whole process. And that's not really the nature of any type of engineering problem or modeling problem. And so, I'm not afraid to be a little bit self-deprecating. And I was actually a little bit excited when it went that way and I caught it on camera. So if you guys go watch the video and, about 6 minutes in, you'll see the hilarity ensue. But I was excited to capture it because I just knew it would be like a funny moment and a good learning experience.
Right.
Not only for me, but for anybody who watches, like, hey, you're going to run into problems and you got to laugh at yourself and just figure it out from there.
Now, do you have somewhere that you can get plans? I mean, are there plans on the internet or something that you can kind of say, okay, look, this is the balsa version. I can make a 3D version. Or is this something that, you just come up in your head and go, oh, I wonder if this will work?
Yeah, the Infinity Wing was just totally from scratch. So that I just
you winged it, right? You just
winged it. I love it.
Very funny, Mike. Very funny.
Hey, man, I'm a stand-up comedian.
But yes, there is. Let me see. I'm looking it up online right now, but. For scale designs, there's been a lot of really good, already kind of designed RC aircraft out there. And so the one I'm working on now actually was, I don't mind telling you what it is because the video is coming out in a couple weeks, but there's a UK site that does a lot of plans of older designs.
Sure.
I think it's called Outer Zone. And one of the first aerobatic airplanes I had as a kid was a Carl Goldberg Super Chipmunk.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
And no longer in production. I just always thought it was the plane itself is something that had a lot of character and is no longer being offered as a model. And so that's what I'm working on next.
Very cool. Yeah, well, Chipmunks are kind of cool. I've seen a couple that guys have scratch built, and they're amazing. And they fly real well. So.
Yeah, they fly nice, and it's a good kind of first sport aerobat for people that are no longer in the kind of trainer zone. So
it doesn't have any bad personality to it. It's it's fairly forgiving and big wing. But that'll be neat to see that. So we're excited when that comes out.
So Eric, have you made any like drone parts, like drone frames, propellers, anything like that with your printers, or any other kind of RC parts?
Not really. No, I mean, I've printed in some flexibles, so like some of the other kit designs that I'm doing will have like the tires. You can print yourself out of flexible filament and stuff like that. You don't have to buy tires; you can just print them yourself. I haven't done a lot of drone parts. I've heard of people printing propellers and stuff, but for bigger RC aircraft, I don't know if I'd trust that quite yet.
Yeah. Those are usually injection. They're usually injection molded for those. So I mean,
yeah, and glass filled.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Super strong.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, once you get to the point where you can design your own parts, whether it's in RC modeling or any industry, any hobby that you have, if you can design them yourself in a CAD program, that's when 3D printing really gets out of hand.
Really?
Yeah, sure.
Where not out of hand, but just the possibilities are kind of endless once you can just design totally custom things versus just downloading stuff off the internet.
Okay, I'm really excited about printing tires now. I don't know why, but it seems really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Printing tires?
Yeah, because you can do a 3D printed tire. Basically, talk about flexible material. You put that in your 3D printer, just print the tire out.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he's giving us a.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Oh, look at that.
Viewers can't see that, but
it's a rubber.
A little grip.
Yeah, it's a little grip.
Yeah,
that's kind of neat. It's
anyway.
a rubber. Well, it's funny you say that because a friend of mine here was building the P38, and it's a very large P38.
Yeah.
And somebody told him, "Hey, man, those aren't the scale tires." So he got a 3D printer and he printed out half of the scale tire.
Oh,
and then he printed out the other half of the scale tire, and then he glued the two pieces together, and now he's got a full-on piece of this thing weighed about 20 pounds. It's just this big, massive tire that he used as a mold, and then he made the mold. Then he filled it full of rubber, and then he made an actual rubber tire out of this 3D printed. Yeah. So when Mike was talking about printing tires, I was like, well, yeah, okay, whatever. You're going to make your own tires, but you actually have the rubberized stuff that you could make some of that out of.
Yeah, and I mean, it's become a pretty common material. It's still a plastic. It's just, it's a thermoplastic that's got urethane in it. So it's really flexible. You can actually print the tire itself.
Huh, and you can use the same printer that you're using, that you have, right? You don't have to use a resin or anything.
No, it's a little bit finicky versus kind of the rigid plastic. You have to print slower, and so it takes a little bit longer to print parts out of the flexible material. But yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to print materials with way different properties.
Now, have you looked at any of the metals yet, or does your machines not do those?
So there is a material that these machines can do. And so it's basically, are you guys familiar with metal injection molding, or MIM?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's a metal powder that is binded together with plastic. And so there are some materials now that basically comes as a filament, and so there's metal powder in the filament. You print out your part about 20% larger than what your target part is, and then you can send it off to a company to put it through a sintering process where they put it in debind and sinter. So they put the part in a solution that basically melts away the plastic, and they put that part in an oven, and it sinters all the metal particles together to make a solid metal part.
Yeah, I heard you could just put it in your wife's washing machine, and you take that stuff out, then you stick it in your oven, and crank it up all the way to broil, and leave it in there for about 2-3 hours, and you're good.
Exactly.
Just don't mind the smell a little bit, but your wife.
That's the weirdest cookie I've ever tasted, honey. It kind of has a metallic taste. Those cookies were terrible.
Kind of bronzy.
Don't make me those again.
Yeah, don't make those again. Whatever recipe you use for those cookies was awful. I've been married 20 years, so I can say that. So.
Outside of that, there are printers made specifically for printing metals and printing out a metal powder, and there's a laser that's fusing the metal together. But those are typically several $100,000.
Ching.
Yeah, that I know that for a fact because I was busting Jay's chops on it one day when I told him that he got this crappy printer that he really needed to. Actually, I told him, I said, well, maybe I'll get a 3D printer. So I started looking at him, and I was sending him these ads that I was like, well, maybe I'll get this one, and it was like 500,000. And then I go, no, I think I'll get this one, and it was like 750,000.
Yeah.
And then I go, okay, I found it, and it was like 1.1 million. And the $1.1 million printer was actually at the Ferrari factory. And what they use it for is turbochargers. They actually print out the aluminum turbocharged. It looks like a little snail, but they print out the two halves, and then they have a TIG welder that welds the pieces together, but it's all 3D printed. And, of course, it's not really in mass production because it's per car, and it takes, a week to print out this aluminum piece. And, but, for $1 million, I should be able to print out my house.
Well, they're doing that in Austin.
There's a lot of
that's what they're doing. There's a company up there that
it's already possible.
They're already printing out houses.
So this go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, well, tell your kid to stay off of YouTube because I just saw recently in a newscast, it's some guy 3D printed his son a Ferrari a Lamborghini. They did the whole Lamborghini body out of 3D parts.
Saw that.
Yeah, it's not quite ready
what happened
yet.
After that?
Did he wreck it?
No, for at least what I saw, they finished it. So they were just doing a replica, put it on some other chassis, right? They just did the body.
Yeah.
And Ferrari caught wind of it and gave him the same model like a real one.
Oh, no kidding. For the kid? That's
they gave it
that is awesome. That's cool. Okay, well, there you go. See, it pays to be a YouTube sensation.
This 3D printing pays. I might start printing out some full scale, I don't know, F-35 or something, maybe Lockheed Martin.
Go for an airplane. Go for a full scale airplane, right? Yeah, exactly.
A full scale. I'm going to print it.
Say, let's give this guy a jet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
Well, what's the largest project you think you could take on?
There's some out there already. Like, I'm not the only one 3D printing planes. So there's other vendors out there that the largest I've seen is about a 72-inch wingspan. The Chipmunk I'm working on now is a 64-inch wingspan, but that is something I've been wondering about is like, how big can we actually go here? So I may start experimenting with that. I want to do a B-17 at some point.
Oh, there you go.
So that could get big. But then, always thinking about weight and strength for something that large.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would think that would be the defining factor from size perspective, because when you build something small, the plastic is, kind of thick and dense, and it gives you a little bit of strength. But if you're trying to save weight from a 6-foot wingspan, you got to have something in there, aluminum tube or carbon fiber or something, and then you just you're doubling the weight, doubling the strength.
Exactly.
I can see how that would go bad fast.
Yeah, and I am like the Chipmunk. I'm designing to take some carbon fiber tubes throughout the wing, just because it's going to be an aerobat. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so my hope is that maybe, and I understand you can't make the festival this year, but that you actually aim at coming to the festival next year. And
that would
bring
awesome.
some of your designs. Of course, I'd love to see and maybe even fly, if I could con you into that, fly the Infinity Wing, because I just love that plane. It's a beautiful plane, and the fact that it's made out of 3D. Although I don't know where we're going to land it, Mike. There's no grass around there, so it's going to be
no grass.
Maybe we have to put some kind of wheels on it or something.
Yeah, the one that'll be for sale will have a belly wheel, and recommended to put a folding prop on it, so you can at least land it on a runway.
No, that's pretty cool.
Without scratching it up. So.
Well, the Arizona Electric Festival has grown over the last few years. We've been there for about the last 6 or 7 years, I think. We've been doing a podcast for the last 5, I guess, with the Electric Festival. But they get bigger and bigger every year, and it's always neat to see. Last year, a guy named Big Mike, he brought a 14-foot Cessna that was all electric. And then I wound up mating it for him. I don't know why, but he's like, hey, you need to fly this for me. But every year there's new designs. There's guys that scratch build. There's a guy named Barrett Hockhouse. He's got a big scratch built P30. What is it?
P36.
P36. Yeah, so it's the Peacekeeper, and he's got all the like 6 engines on it, and he flew it around. And I don't know if he's doing it this year.
Barrett makes some really awesome stuff. No
yeah,
question.
He really does. So they're really impressive builders. And of course there's guys like me that just have the kits, but a lot of scratch build guys that come out here, and I think it'd be kind of neat to see something
I'd love
3D
to go.
printed. So yeah.
I mean, please keep me in the loop on that, and
sure.
I'll definitely plan to be there next year. I wish it would have worked out this year, but actually it'd probably be a bit for the best because I'll have more planes ready to go. And,
right.
Yeah.
So what are the big plans? For obviously you're gonna start this website, or you have started it, and then you're gonna be starting to design these. Where does it go from there? Yeah,
so February, like I said, I'll be sending out. I've got a bunch of people that signed up already to be notified when the designs are ready. So the Infinity Wing will be ready in February, and then from there, I'd like to have a new one every month or 6 weeks. Have a new airplane going.
Wow.
And I want to make one of the biggest things. One of my goals is to make it a little easier for people to get into the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3D printing world, the kind of 3D printing community and the RC modeling community are very similar.
Sure.
We just kind of nerd out on technology and nerd out on our hobbies. So they're starting to kind of merge together. And so if I can come out with designs that are simpler to build, simpler to fly, and so I'd like to have a few that are kind of beginner models that people can not be too weary about 3D printing their own plane.
Yeah.
And not be too complex, but still also look really cool. So I'm kind of dabbling with some ideas on some really unique designs that are also really simple and a little smaller and light and fewer pieces and stuff like that. So, but if I can have 10 to 12, different selections on the website by the end of this year.
Have you thought about having some that were like UMX size? The real tiny ones.
Yeah,
that would be pretty kick butt if you had a couple of those.
That would be fun.
Yeah, so if you could print it in 6 parts or something instead of 30 parts, then that's kind of my idea. And then that's why I also want to start doing a video and educating people on some different material choices that are lighter and stronger and stuff like that. So cool. Anything I can do to kind of like what Flight Test does. They're one of their biggest missions is just to make the hobby more accessible for people. And so one of my missions too is to make RC modeling through 3D printing more accessible for people. So the simpler I can make it, the better.
Very cool. Well, I will tell you, because I jumped into the turbine world from these, from our little group here, and
but it's a Park Flyer turbine, so don't worry about it. It's a Park Flyer turbine.
This is the Park Flyer Podcast Turbine Edition. But I will tell you that the one thing that irritates me more than anything is not being able to find a scale cockpit. That just bugs me to death. Now the manufacturers will make them. They just mold them. It's like a little
$700.
Thin plastic sheet.
Yes, $800. They're they get somebody to go in there and put a bunch of dots on it so it looks like some gauges or whatever, but it's just I actually had a guy that made me one, and he did it out of a mold. He mixed up the stuff, poured it in. I wasn't as happy with it as I probably should have been, but still, you're spending all this money and you get something and you're just like, okay, that's just not going to go in my airplane. Because when you're spending that kind of money on it, some of these guys go to Top Gun, and a friend of mine, Spencer here in Phoenix, has a resin printer as well, and he's redesigning his entire F-16 cockpit. So he's taking pictures, making layers, and doing it, and it's very time consuming. But it is amazing to me how, and I know it is time consuming, but it's just amazing that there's not more of those out there. I mean, at Thingiverse and all these other places, you can't find them. It's ridiculous. And there is a market for them, but not a huge market, because these guys, only fly, like I would only need 2, one for the F-15 and one for the, L-39. But, anyway, it's just another avenue. I think it kind of irritates me that there's not people. I guess I should get a 3D printer and do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot. The design time
Yeah.
to do a hot cockpit, given the amount of detail that's in a cockpit.
Yeah, sure.
If only you had friends that knew how to do that
Yeah,
stuff.
if only.
I know, right? Exactly.
It's too bad you don't know anybody that knows how to design anything.
Knows his way around a CAD program.
I don't even know anybody that owns a 3D printer. considering both of my buddies have one. Actually, all three.
You really have to get out more, Mike. Yeah, we've been wanting to talk to you about that.
Exactly. So
I definitely don't have 12, so don't call me.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I have time. That's the problem. Anybody that's actually doing 3D printing stuff is all like, yeah, not me, Jack. I'm not the one that you need to call. So,
Motion RC actually is starting to, with most of their big models or bigger models that they've been coming out, they've been actually putting out files so that people can either resin print or FDM print out the cockpits and stuff. Just little accessories like the ladders and just little necks all around. I just thought that's kind of cool as an accessory. If you want to have it, you can either go to what's the name of the site? Not like Thingiverse, but if you don't have a 3D printer, you can contact the guys. Float them a couple of bucks, and they'll print out whatever you want. And I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is kind of neat.
Yeah, and there's dummy engines, like dummy cylinder engines, radial engines and stuff like that. You can get pretty good detail on those. You can do a full 3D one versus just those kind of flat molded ones that typically come with kits.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the sky's the limit with 3D printing, man.
Yeah, well, it just depends on if you get $1 million, you can print your own turbochargers.
Exactly.
Right.
But you can get into it for, Jay, you're getting into it for a couple $100.
Yeah, I think mine cost, it was less than $200, to get into mine. And then the accessories, kind of like you said, the accessories I just keep adding.
Mike got into it for free.
Yeah, I got it for $0.
Yeah, because it was a gift.
Because Jake bought me one, as a gift.
It was a gift. So
couldn't help myself.
Good friend.
I know, right? We are with Eric Haddad. He runs 3D Aeroventures. He built the Infinity Wing. You can catch him on YouTube at his 3D Aeroventures YouTube site, or you can go to his website at 3daeroventures.com. Learn all about his designs. Unfortunately, our hour is up.
Goes quick.
Yeah,
I know. It goes really fast, especially when you got an interesting character like Eric. But
cool, thanks.
But man, we appreciate you joining us on the Park Flyer podcast. It's always interesting to have our guests and to see how they get started. I'm glad that you were in the hobby. I will tell you to make sure you take at least a little bit of time and address this remote ID thing. If you haven't already commented, please do so. We are getting on our Facebook page. We have a Park Flyer podcast listeners group. And people have been commenting on there, as well as some other ones, some other groups that have been saying, hey, we are running out of time. We're down to about 30 days. It ends on March 2nd. So for you especially, it'll affect the business. So it's something that you need to say, hey, look, this is a huge deal for me, and my business could, totally go away if this gets put into play. So
exactly.
Just recently, just a real quick note, recently the extension that the AMA had put out there did get denied. So we only have until March 2nd. So please get it out there. Eric, it is amazing the things that you do. I love the fact that you have a 3D printing store right behind you in your office.
Yeah, thanks.
And you're very organized, I can tell. And those boxes are probably each
it does not look like the back of our backdrops of our two little squares.
No, you can see my
pile of junk and my pile of
here.
planes back there.
Yeah, these are that's 3D printed stuff that I was painting, so that's why it's back there. So I was doing a little foam build. It's just all sitting back there. Otherwise, my desk has gotten all out of hand. I got to clean it off before the guys get here. So, well, guys, you're going to be here, and we're going to go out to the Electric Festival. It's we'll be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's right.
And if you were out at the Electric Festival and you want to stop by the booth and say hello, we all three of us should be there. So it's going to be an exciting time.
We should be matching too. So Either will be yellow or blue, right?
Yeah, that's true. Or blue, yeah, yellow or blue. Probably blue.
I don't think I'll be wearing yellow anymore after what happened to me in North Carolina.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, the bugs loved you.
You guys have a Park Flyer podcast hat.
Yeah, we have.
You know what? We don't have any hats. I've been looking for some hats.
Yeah, we just have T-shirts.
But we had T-shirts last year that we gave out, but I think this year we kind of got caught up in some other stuff, and I didn't get them ordered in time. Yeah. So, but we did give some out. I will tell you though that I have gotten several emails and phone calls that we are having several guests come by to see us. So I'm not gonna spoil the surprise, but several people have said, "Hey, we're going to be there." So we're looking forward to some of our listeners coming over and coming from out of town and saying hey and hanging out with us for the weekend. So next year, Eric, you're welcome to come out and hang with us too. I think it'd be fantastic to have you out there.
Year.
Well, it was kind of short notice for you, so considering it's just in a few days. So, but we appreciate you taking the time. Please stay in touch with us. You can get, obviously you have all of our information, so you can get with us. If you are interested in 3D printing or some of his designs, once again, you can go to 3daeroventures.com, get a hold of Eric, and I'm sure he will be more than happy to direct you to where you need to go.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and let's do it again sometime. I'd love to be on the show again anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome anytime. We love having guys on, and it's matter of fact, I got an email or two from Tim Walker, so we need to have him on too because he was a pretty funny guy. He used to host the Angle of Attack podcast, and so when they kind of shut down, we had him on and for a Christmas episode.
Yeah, I've heard him on some past episodes.
Yeah, so we're excited. Well, that does it for this week, I guess. And we're going to be busy flying this whole weekend. But, Mike, you got your flights coming in. And Jay, I think he's got his flights. So I guess we'll see you in a few.
The Funracer will fly again.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'm going to be flying my Funracer, which is like the first time I've flown it since you left. I think I got it all situated, and then I didn't fly it again. So
too bad the props would strike each other. You could fly them, like belly to belly and toss them up.
Oh yeah,
that would be cool. But it could be a big old accident that way, man.
Well, everybody's there for an accident. So, well, for Michael here in Arizona,
and Jay from the hills of Texas,
and AK Mike in Texas.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Let's fly.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.